I think I can speak for Jennifer and for me when I say it's a privilege for us to be back on the Stanford campus. She was actually here as a student. I was here only in terms of tuition while she was here as a student. But they let me visit my tuition on a regular basis, so that's very gratifying. I think these are wonderful sessions. And when I look out on an audience like this, I'm always reminded of what the late Bart Giamatti, who was the president of a lesser-known institution in the East, Yale, would say to gatherings such as this. He would say, you may be wondering, what's the point of it all? What am I expected to know? Are people going to tell me what I should know? And he would always then say, you're not expected to know, but you're expected to wish to know. And so today, Jennifer and I are going to talk about something that we should all wish to know, because for all the variety in this audience, in terms of the demography of the age, where you come from, what your interests are in life, there is a fixed certainty. We're all going to have to deal at some point in our lives, sooner or later, with either lingering illness or certainly with death. And Jennifer and I are going to talk about that today in a way that we hope it will be as useful to you as it has been for us within our own family, given what we have experienced in the last couple of years under the expert guidance of Jennifer, with the passing of my mother and then another member of the family who's going through a difficult situation. We are doing this in the context, obviously, of some extraordinary changes in our population in this country. We keep reading about the baby boomers. They're now entering into their senior years. It's going to be the largest single bulge in the history of mankind in any one society. And one of the things that they're going to have to deal with is how they're going to deal with the end of their lives. So, Dr. Brokaw, your father's 72 years old. As you know, I have an anchorman's ego. I think I'm going to live forever. On the off chance that I don't, let's talk about what I should be preparing for. You know I have a living will, and your mother does as well. What else should we have? And what is it about that living will that we should know?
Well, first of all, I think the audience should know that this is really unscripted. And my dad and I have been going back and forth about what exactly we should talk about. And I'm going to take this opportunity to put him on the spot here, because I have no idea about your living will.
And unfortunately, I don't know a lot about my living will.
Well,
in fact, I'm not even sure where it is at this point.
That's the case for the majority of people, actually. Only 30% of Americans have prepared any kind of advance directive or living will, and they can be used interchangeably. But, you know, most people have a pretty clear idea of how they want to live their life and how they want to die. So it's really remarkable that we don't take the time, and it really should be when we're, you know, as soon as we're of age that we start to think about this. I had a near fatal ski accident when I was 27. Came very close. I suffered a head injury. I thankfully came out with most of my neurons firing, but I had prepared no kind of directive at that stage of my life, even though I was a ER resident. And I'm finding more and more now that people who have prepared some sort of statement for their family leave their family in much better shape, emotionally, financially, and otherwise, than those who haven't. And it has occurred to me that my own parents have been quite remiss in telling me, you know, what's important to them. So I want to turn it back to you, Dad. I want to ask you, you know, what makes your life meaningful, and what kinds of decisions should I make on your behalf if you weren't able to speak for yourself?
Well, I think one of the things that you want to do is that I'm a realist, and if it comes to a point where I have some kind of a terminal condition, whether it's...
what does terminal mean?
Well, terminal, that there's very little chance of recovery, that no matter what they do to me medically, or if it's head trauma in an accident of some kind, we can extend his life physically, but we can't extend the quality of his life. That's what's important to me at this point. I have thought about it because I find myself in a lot of dangerous situations.
But you're giving me vague terms here. You're telling me terminal, you're telling me quality of life. what does quality of life mean to you? What are the specific tasks that...
I want to be conscious, and given who I am, I want to be able to talk and communicate with the people that I care about.
Okay.
And that's important. And I think a lot about severe spinal cord injuries. If I'm confined in some way at a certain stage in my life, I don't want heroic efforts just to keep me alive on a resuscitator.
Again, heroic efforts are a problem.
Well, I'm going to give you an example.
Okay.
I don't want to be put just on some resuscitation device of some kind, a breathing apparatus just to keep me going, that there may be a glimmer of life in there. And this does raise the important thing. I'm not sure when we did the living will whether we had a lawyer do it or whether we had a doctor do it, and we need to get that spelled out.
In the majority of
specifically.
cases, it is an attorney that does the living will, which is, I don't know how medicine relinquished this really important task to the lawyers. There was a study that came out a few years ago that said that 50% of terminally ill patients, only 50%, had any kind of advance directive on their chart. Of those 50%, only 12 had prepared their advance directive, 12% had prepared their advance directive with a physician. And conversely, 60 to 75% of physicians who are taking care of terminally ill patients have no idea if their patient has an advance directive or what the contents of those advance directives are. It's really shocking, actually. I think it's a crisis in healthcare, and we have a very superb and technologically advanced healthcare system, but we've moved into such subspecialization that likely when you or mom are in dire straits, and I hope that doesn't happen for quite some time, we're not going to be talking to one physician. We're going to be talking to a lot of ologists, and they're each going to come in with a microscope or a magnifying glass, and they're going to look at their one organ that they're charged to take care with, and they're going to tell me, well, his heart looks better today. The kidneys are a little worse, but the heart is better. It's very hard to get any physician to look at the whole picture anymore and to give good prognostic information or good information that relates to the chance of achieving a recovery that would be meaningful to the patient. And unfortunately, because our primary care doctors don't tend to take care of us in the hospital anymore, you're often dealing with somebody you've never met before when you're making decisions for a critically ill family member or loved one. And the other big misperception, I think, is that the doctor's going to make the right decision for you. I tell this analogy often. In medicine these days, we're like the pilot of a 747 who's happy to fly the plane until there's engine trouble. And when there's engine trouble and it really looks like things are going bad, we come out to the passenger and say, well, your life is at stake here, and it's your body too. What do you think I should do? And we put families and loved ones in such a terrible position to have to make a myriad of decisions that they're really ill-equipped to make. So my focus in life right now is to help families and patients have the kinds of discussions that I want to continue with my dad when we have more time, because it takes longer than 15 minutes, so that I really get a sense of what kinds of decisions I will need to make for him to achieve the outcome that he wants. And believe me, it's very individual. I have one patient in my practice who was an avid Sierra hiker and one of the first vanguard of female attorneys. And she has suffered a number of strokes in the last couple of years, and she's now wheelchair bound. And I recently did an advanced care plan with her, and I said, you know, what's the minimum level of functioning that you want to have? And she said, well, 10 years ago I would have said that I wouldn't want to go on living unless I could go hiking in the Sierras. And now I realize that all I really want to be able to do is interact with my loved ones and direct my care, and I don't even care if I can talk to do it I'm happy to communicate non-verbally. That really took me by surprise, and it really taught me that once we experience some disability in life, we do find ways that life is still worth living. So whatever you say to me today, Dad, I expect that you may change your mind in about 5 years, and I'm going to ask you again.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, and that I'm thinking I should go back, get a primary care physician, a kind of quarterback in New York, because you're out here and may not be available if something happens traumatically to your mother or to me. And then share it with you, but share it with your siblings as well simultaneously, not just on a piece of paper, but we ought to have eye-to-eye contact, because even in my business, I've seen so many families that get so deeply divided about what should happen next if somebody is at that stage. Because we're going to move around here a little bit, a lot of other families are going through this kind of thing, and how do they prepare for end of life financially? For example, take a couple, they're on Medicare B, which is the government program. They've worked hard, they've done pretty well, and they've got, say, $450,000 in a 401k. How long is that going to last them if they get to end of life?
Well, the stats are really sobering. 1 in 7 people age 65 need full-time care. And if you reach 85, 40% will require full-time care. Full-time care now, on average, costs about $100,000 a year. So, and if your needs are...
And that's just baseline.
That's a low ball.
Yeah.
It's $100,000 to $300,000 a year. So, and we have a looming crisis in healthcare that we haven't even begun to talk about, which is long-term care. And these long-term care costs, contrary to most people's understandings about Medicare, are not covered by Medicare. When you're enrolled in Medicare at 65, you get 100 days or about 3 months in a skilled nursing facility. And to meet the requirements for skilled nursing, you really have to be very sick. It has to be after an operation. But for just daily care with a caregiver, none of that is covered by Medicare. And people really don't realize that. And so what a lot of people end up doing is selling all their assets, their home, to pay for their long-term care, leaving nothing to bequeath to their families, and then finally going on Medicaid, which many people have never taken a dime of public assistance in their life, but at the end of their life or in their old age, that's what's required. So we have a lot of re-engineering to do in our understanding and our ability to take care of our aging population. And I think that there are some really innovative strategies that are starting, and we don't have time to go into them, but everyone should realize those basic facts.
Even the young people who are in this audience need to start having their conversation with their parents. I was speaking with a physician who spends a lot of time on wellness, knowing that I was coming here, and he said, ask your daughter how you can add life to your years and not years to your life. What do we know about that at this stage?
I think the most inspiring research that's come out in medicine in the last couple of years has been about the value of exercise. And for those of you who haven't seen this wonderful YouTube video called 23 and a half hours, please make a note of it and go home and watch it. It really turns out that exercise, and not the kind of exercise that I did in my 20s or that most of you are doing now, but 20 minutes a day, 20 to 30 minutes a day of walking gives you the most bang for your buck in terms of cardiovascular health, mental health, diabetes. They have really found that it takes much less exercise than we ever realized to achieve great health benefits. And I deal with a lot of people who are really facing very severe, depressing situations with their health. And the one thing I tell all of them is, and I make it sure that they are achieving 20 to 30 minutes of exercise a day, because no matter what you're dealt with, it will improve the quality of your life and the length of your life.
to give you some idea of what it's like to live with this daughter, I've been an exerciser all my life and at a fairly high level. But when I come to San Francisco, she takes me down and we swim in the bay together, which we did yesterday.
Keep swimming.
I'm not sure it extended my life, but it did keep me cold for the next 4 hours, I'll tell you that. What about all this discussion about vitamins and supplements and all the things I ought to be taking, osteoporosis drugs and that kind of thing?
Keep exercising.
That's the key. Yeah. And what about the mental piece of it? We were here at Stanford a couple of years ago talking about when you get to a certain stage in life and how you can keep your brain more active, which is as critical to keeping your body in shape as anything else.
Yeah, I mean, the research on that is still nascent, but it does look like taking up new things throughout your life really helps keep your brain plastic. You know, when we're young and we're learning new things all the time, we have the greatest plasticity, and keeping up the habits of learning new things does seem to make a bit of a difference.
Can I find out what I need to know on the internet?
Don't go in alone. I think when it comes to medicine, the internet has been an incredible tool for patients, but it's also quite unnerving to see what's out there. And even I, as a physician, when somebody comes to me with a very difficult or unusual diagnosis and I want to do some research on it, I cannot believe the variability in information on the internet, and then it almost always takes me calling somebody who really deals with this daily as a clinician to get the real answers. So at the end of the day, we still have to go to our doctors and we still have to talk to them. And please, if we're going to give one message today, it's, talk to your doctor or talk to your parent about what your values are about your life and the possible end of your life. I know many of you in this room are probably bicyclists or skiers, and having had that near miss for myself, I know that you just don't know what tomorrow will bring, and somebody may be making very vital decisions for you, and let them know what's important to you.
Well, I just will conclude with one anecdote between the two of us, because Jennifer, from an early age on, had what I would describe as the persona of an emergency room physician, cut to the chase right away. And when I turned 50, which I'd like to go back to, I was having a little trouble with that intersection in my life, and my wife had arranged a party for us in New York, and Jennifer called to congratulate me on my 50th birthday, and I said, I'm not so sure, I'm having a little difficulty with the fact that I've turned 50. And she said, all of your friends are going to be there, right? And I said, that's right. She said, Dad, think about it. You all came in together, and you're all going to check out together, so just get used to it. Thank you all very much.